In 2020, I had 10 questions for atheists. And
I remember Braxton's questions for atheists. I answered them.
But now, as 2025 is upon us, I've got 5 questions for atheists in 2025, given certain events and current debates in the worldview discussion arena. If you're an atheist, I want to know what your answer is to these questions. So let's just jump right in.
Worldview discussion arena, eh? Well, count me in. I have something to say. Hi, my name is Scarlett, and I'm an atheist and skeptic, and on this channel, I like to answer questions for atheists. And thank Algorithma, a new set of questions has dropped from Braxton Hunter of Trinity Radio. Like I said, we answered some of his questions a couple of years ago, and for 2025, a new set. Hooray! In the interest of transparency, I'll let you know that I did cut out a little of Braxton's intro, and I'm going to be cutting out parts of his questions if I feel like it's superfluous and not really related to my answer. But as always, I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can go look at his whole video and see what you think, and if you think that I have contextualized him properly. Anyway, that's the blibbity blab. We're going to get underway and answer some of these questions.
Right in. Question 1. Cameron Berzi over at Capturing Christianity recently caused a lot of controversy by saying he no longer takes atheism seriously.
The reason why I don't take atheism seriously any longer is because even if we accept the atheist's strongest argument, it still wouldn't prove atheism.
We have these.
What, am I supposed to care about one theist video? I mean, I've heard theists say a lot worse and they don't take atheists seriously. But I didn't know about Cameron's video, and I haven't noticed any kerfuffle. I don't know, I might have missed it. But I have to say, that video from Cameron seems a bit rage-baity to me. Like, he's really trying to get people upset and make them respond so he gets a little bit more engagement. I could be wrong about that, but anyway, is it new that some apologist somewhere is saying something negative about atheists? The good news is that you are free in your own brain, in the privacy of your own brain, to think whatever you want, rational or silly, and there is no obligation for anyone to accept what anyone says. So have fun in the comfort of your own mind. But I have to say, the way Cameron frames it, it's like atheism is something that you prove right or wrong, but it's simply a stance of not accepting that any God exists. You say some God exists. I say I don't believe in any God, and I don't accept your arguments. That's all. Atheism isn't something that you prove right. But let's continue.
We have these really powerful arguments, at least from our perspective, on the theist side, like arguments from fine-tuning. But yes, there are arguments on the other side that are meant to show that it's unlikely God exists, or that God does not exist, like arguments from evil or divine hiddenness arguments. And so this puts us in an interesting spot. We've got arguments for and against. But as Philip Goff suggested recently, perhaps you have a God of limited power. This would mean you have really powerful arguments from God on the theist side, like the fine-tuning arguments. But then the arguments from evil and divine hiddenness no longer become powerful arguments for atheism. Instead, what they are arguments for a limited God, but not arguments for no God. And so there's no reason to take atheism seriously, someone might decide. So the question is Cameron wrong? And if so, why is he wrong?
What Braxton is bringing up here as arguments for atheism are simply objections that atheists bring up for theistic arguments. And they only work against certain claims about a God, so of course they don't work for all gods. Arguments from fine-tuning? Why would the universe need to be anyway for the Christian God? Couldn't he make life any way he saw fit? Isn't he a creator God? Braxton is going to come back to the fine-tuning later, so let's leave it for now. Braxton seems to assume that all theists believe in his God, but there are different kinds of theists. And I think atheists are pretty clear that some arguments are only objections to certain concepts of God. Evil and divine hiddenness are only arguments brought up against the Christian triomni God. And in Christian mythology, Bible God actually walked around on earth. He came back in the flesh as Jesus, Can't he do that now? Guess not. But is Braxton going against other Christians who think God is all powerful? I guess I don't care what your God is actually like. I don't see any evidence of it. Arguments don't really cut it. The universe exists, we exist, and if the universe were different, we wouldn't exist. Okay, how does that get us to a God? Again, we'll come back to the fine-tuning, so look forward to that. But let's just state it in the clearest terms possible. The theist says there is a God, and I should believe in this thing. I don't see evidence for this thing, and the arguments for God have more holes than a spaghetti strainer. I'm not saying there is no God. I'm saying I don't accept that a God exists, all-powerful or not all-powerful. And again, you are free to believe whatever nonsense you want. We live in a horrifyingly wonderful world in that regard, so you don't have to do anything with the fact that I don't accept your claims.
Question 2. Some atheist creators seem to think that the recent presidential election was so important that it changes the way they should do things on their channels. Watch.
At this point, Braxton plays clips from 2 atheist YouTubers. One who decided to start a new channel because he's a little burned out on atheist topics, and the election was like a wake-up call. Now he's going to discuss all kinds of topics he chooses. Another one originally said she didn't want to talk politics, but has decided she now wants to talk politics. We'll skip their explanations in the interest of time, but I will point out neither of them said, hey, I'm not an atheist anymore. They're still atheists. So let's see what the question is.
Why do you think that this election was so impactful to atheists in this way? What did it reveal about the culture?
I want to start off my answer by saying that the US election wasn't just impactful for atheists. I know lots of people on the left in general who are dreading the next 4 years. I specifically know lots of Christians who are really concerned. I have a good friend who changed churches during the first Trump presidency because she and her husband couldn't stand the Trumpy sermons and general demeanor of the people of that congregation. But if you have any concerns about freedom of religion, you might be worried for the next few years. The intrusion of religion into politics, the empowering of Christian nationalism, the demeaning of various groups of people. Like recently, some right-wing blabbers are upset about sign language interpreters. Like, what? But I do want to talk about people broadening their topics range. Braxton might not get it because his bio is very Jesus-y. He has this YouTube channel, Trinity Radio. All of its education is religion-oriented, especially toward the apologetics end. And he has been a pastor and is president of his own Bible college. I don't see many other interests there. Atheists usually aren't that focused in their lives. And we have lots of other interests whose only connection to atheism is they don't entail any God or God belief. Prophet of Zod specifically wanted to talk about cultural topics, movies and shows, and whatever struck his fancy. I have to say I understand his point of view. Sometimes I'm tired of dealing with Christian arguments because they are the same over and over and over again. Most of my life is not about atheism. My degrees were in languages and literatures, and I'm learning a new language now. I teach beginning French and Italian. That's my real job. I love to travel, read books, usually fiction, watch TV shows, again, usually fiction, do yoga and ride my bike, eat out with friends. I haven't even watched that much atheist YouTube these days because I have this channel. I have been enjoying the meltdown of flat earthers after a bunch of people went to Antarctica, and I've also really been enjoying watching judges give us back down to sovereign citizens. Oh, and I have a specific interest in people who have decided to break contact with their families. Way off topic, aren't I? I will conclude this segment on why people may feel different after this election by repeating no one has said they're stopping being atheists because of the election. So I feel like people are just branching out. I'm not even sure why this is a question specifically for atheists, but man, I talked a bunch. Good thing Braxton only has 5.
The culture. Question 3. Many atheists are determinists, meaning that they don't believe in free will, at least not of the sort that many people think of when they hear the term free will. They believe that the past history of the universe is like to a billion trains of dominoes or trillions of chains of dominoes that result in the past history of the cosmos, the formation of your physical body, your past life experiences, your neural structure, and the firings of neurons in your brain that are your choices, but could not have been otherwise. On the other hand, maybe some atheists think that we have what's called libertarian freedom, the notion that whatever you ended up choosing, you really could have done otherwise. So here's my question. If you're a determinist, how do we hold people morally culpable for things they do that could not have been otherwise, given the history of the universe? And if it is the case that you believe in free will of the libertarian sort as an atheist, how is that possible without God? Now,
I cut out a bit of Braxton's clarification on compatibilism. In the interest of time, it doesn't add much in terms of my answer. So I have two parts to this because I really don't believe in libertarian free will, and I hold to a kind of determinism. But it's not like total determinism like he seems to imply. But the first thing I'd like to say is that holding people accountable for their actions is in part simply to protect society as a whole. Violent people are not in the interest of society. If somebody is going out there and causing damage to other people, that's not in our interest. So putting that person in a place so that we are safe as a society is in our interest. But I would like to think that rehabilitation can play a part in that person's life, that would be a part of the determinism because it's a part of the conditions that make that person have the actions that he or she has. So that's part of the second thing is the moral structure we have as a society plays a role in the determinism. Human society progresses. We learn more. That knowledge gets added to our moral beliefs, and this in turn guides people who are making decisions. It's a part of the determinism, and again, rehabilitation can be a part of that. So we grow up in this world, and our brain forms in this world. We have the material resources we have, and that shapes our needs, our wants, our desires. We have a moral structure where we learn right from wrong according to that society. And all of this shaping of our brains and our thoughts and our processes guides our choices. But definitely, I don't think there is anything like a soul separate from our physical bodies that has its own personality and can make decisions divorced from our physical circumstances. So that's sort of my take.
Number 4, Richard Dawkins has long been praised by atheists as one of the 4 horsemen of the new atheism. But recently he's caused some controversy with some comments about the trans debate. For many atheists, he's right about science when it comes to young earth creationism versus evolution, but he's wrong when it comes to this current cultural debate. Do you personally think he's right or wrong, and why?
Yeah, he's wrong. He apparently hasn't read the appropriate science. I'm not even sure what Braxton is referring to about what Dawkins has said lately because I don't pay that much attention. But this is the thing. I can think Dawkins is good in his field, which has to do with genetics, and accept the conclusion he has come to about the science he has studied, especially when he's talking about a consensus of scientists. But I can reject other opinions he has. I like to listen to people's opinions on things and why they hold those opinions, but I don't have to think they are correct about everything. They can be correct on some things and wrong on others, misguided, misinformed, all kinds of things. And if the topic is specifically trans participation in sports, the solution for me is for appropriate sports organizations to create guidelines for said participation, which as far as I understand is happening. We don't need to demonize people or disregard their experiences, especially if we're talking about children and teens who are expressing discomfort with their gender and the sex assigned at birth. That's all I'm going to say on the topic. Let's go to the next question.
Why? Now, for this last question, there's a little bit of setup. Here's a quote from Robin Collins about the fine-tuning of the universe, and I'd like to know what your reaction to it is. Suppose we went on a mission to Mars and found a domed structure in which everything was set up just right for life to exist. The temperature, for example, was set to around 70 degrees Fahrenheit and the humidity was at 50%. Moreover, there was an oxygen recycling system, an energy gathering system, and a whole system for the production of food. Put simply, the domed structure appeared to be a fully functioning biosphere. What conclusion would we draw from finding this structure? Will we draw the conclusion that it just happened to form by chance? Certainly not. Instead, we would unanimously conclude that it was designed by some intelligent being. Why would we draw this conclusion? Because an intelligent designer appears to be the only plausible explanation for the existence of the structure. That is the only alternative explanation we can think of, that the structure was formed by some natural process, seems extremely unlikely. Of course, it is possible that, for example, through some volcanic eruption, various metals and other compounds could have formed and then separated out in just the right way to produce the biosphere. But such a scenario strikes us as extraordinary unlikely, thus making this alternative explanation unbelievable.
What is this, the watchmaker for the space age? And goody, a hypothetical. Don't we just love these? And I mean, they make us roll our eyes. Like, I hope we didn't just look at a structure and say, what else could it be? And then the lack of alternative explanations doesn't get us to hastily conclude what we want to be true, that this is a man-made structure. Like, I would hope that we would examine this structure for signs of manufacturing, check if the metal occurs in nature, or is it an alloy? Is it something that can only be manufactured? That we would find signs of beings having created it, maybe a manual or some kind of document, whatever form that would take. That the system is not a natural filter, but again shows that someone put it together. And all that would look different from the rest of what occurs on Mars, which is also designed, but differently, by a timeless, spaceless creature of apparently limited abilities, to reference question 1. So anyway, all your objections to the watchmaker apply here. I also find it deceptive that Braxton includes lots of images of structures that appear man-made to guide our perception of this Martian watchmaker fun times. Sneaky, sneaky Braxton. Braxton has a little bit more to say on the fine-tuning, so let's hear him out before we say some more stuff.
The universe is analogous to such a biosphere, according to recent findings in physics.
Snicker, according to recent findings in physics.
Almost everything about the basic structure of the universe, for example, the fundamental laws and parameters of physics and the initial distribution of matter and energy, is balanced on a razor's edge for life to occur.
And in fact, doesn't occur in most of what we call the universe. Maybe God intended tardigrades. And if by life, Braxton really means humans, intelligent life, there's a lot of our planet we can't inhabit without adaptations. I mean, most of our planet is water, and we can't live in water without all kinds of things helping us out. Let's keep going.
As the eminent Princeton physicist Freeman Dyson notes, quote, "There are many lucky accidents in physics. Without such accidents, water could not exist as liquid, chains of carbon atoms could not form complex organic molecules, and hydrogen atoms could not form breakable bridges between molecules. In short, life as we know it would be impossible." Now, he goes on to say the following.
Here, Braxton reads a list of scientific facts about probabilities for various scientific phenomena that allow the conditions for life. They're up on the screen. It takes quite a bit for him to get through them. I don't know if they're all current science. I'm not a scientist. I'm willing to just accept them because it really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, events with a low probability do happen sometimes. People do win the lottery, for example. And heck, one day, the weather report said there was a 0% chance of rain, and guess what? It rained. My husband fumed about that for days. Also, things with a high probability of happening sometimes don't happen. I mean, it's just probabilities. Stuff happens, and we can calculate how likely that was to happen. And I think there are a lot of things in our lives that, if we thought about it, it's just really weird that that was allowed to happen. There was a low probability of that happening. In terms of life being here, and intelligent life, us, well, we obviously are here. So things had to be in such a way that we could be here, that we emerged. I think this list is meant to be overwhelming. Like, looky y'all at all this stuff that needs to be in place for us to just exist. How could that have all just happened, y'all? I don't think it can. I mean, this is incredulity out the wazoo. But where is this God? I have heard it is outside of space and time. It's some kind of mind without a body. What sustains its existence? Why couldn't we all just exist in that space with it, whatever that is? And since we have souls that supposedly would join this God in this heaven place or whatever it is, why did God bother with the knobs and sliders and tuning, like me trying to improve my audio quality for YouTube? And I swear, y'all, I am trying to get better sound quality. I'm working at it, but I digress. My point is, why have this physical life with all of these necessary parameters in a vast universe which does not support life at all? Why couldn't we just exist in that vacuum with the deity, that nothing space wherever God is? Especially if it's a limited God. Why waste his limited resources and capabilities creating all of this, a lot of it just going to waste? I'm going to save my final comments for the end. Let's let Braxton finish us out.
Now, these are some of the kinds of facts that are often used to make fine-tuning arguments, some of the best arguments for God's existence according to almost everyone involved. So here's the question. Are we wrong to think that this supports theism? If so, why?
Braxton makes it sound like it's just so obvious. I mean, this is what he believes, y'all, so we all should just believe like Braxton, right? But I guess I always wonder, why wouldn't any parameters the universe needed to create life make Braxton and theists like him accept the fine-tuning for God? Now, the universe has to be some way, and it has to be some way such that we can exist on our planet. Wouldn't they think that whatever those conditions were created by some powerful agent that they call God? I mean, I don't know, that's what strikes me. But there are 2 points I come back to. One, most of the universe is indeed not fine-tuned for life. We can only exist on a small portion of our planet without adaptations. I mean, now we have all kinds of things. We can exist in really harsh climates. And 2, couldn't a creator God have made any conditions, or no conditions at all? Maybe this more limited being Braxton posited in question 1 couldn't. But why does this supposed fine-tuning point to the Christian God specifically? The one that wants men to cut off their foreskins in the Old Testament and give up shellfish. And then it sacrifices itself on a cross. And he cares about our sex lives and whether or not we're tithing to some church. Like, sin is a big thing. Like, why? Why is that the universe that this thing made? The appeal of the fine-tuning argument, I think, is in part its science-y nature. That you can collect all of these numbers and put them together and say, ooh, look at that. Such a low probability of all of this happening. It's just overwhelming. The other appeal is it brings along 2 other arguments, the cosmological and design. It's a great threefer. I mean, if the universe is fine-tuned, must also be designed, right? That's what the fine-tuning is. And if it's that, somebody must have created it, some thinking agent that is a God that cares about your sex life, and you should give some money to a church. But I'll tell you what, none of this points to a God unless you already believe in one. It's just a curious, interesting fact about the way our universe came about. These low probabilities, it's interesting. Doesn't mean there's a God. So there you go. Here are my comments to participate in this worldview discussion arena. And maybe you would like to contribute to it too. And you can do so by commenting below. I love to read your comments. And while you're down there, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuffing. Pour out your libations to Algorithmo and his consort Algorithma, the ones that brought me this list of questions from Braxton. And maybe you will be rewarded with all kinds of YouTube recommendations, both good and bad, just like the world, made up of all kinds of hideously wonderful things. And if you like what I do, you can buy me a coffee. Here's a QR code with my cute kitties, thinking that you're going to buy us some kibble. That's all they care about. And sometimes I do buy them kibble with the money you give me. We all really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Not quite sure what my next video is going to be, but it's going to be stupid. Bye for now.